Tonight's seminar is all about accessible voting. Tonight, we're going to cover accessible voting sites, how many and what help is available, voter assistance, who is permitted to assist voters, curbside voting, what is it, where is it, and who qualifies for it, accessible voting equipment, our Verity touch writer, and we will have a video on how to use that equipment, one-stop early voting, what is it, when is it, and the options for voters, absentee by mail voting, where I will give a brief overview of how to request a mail-in ballot. We will cover current guidance pertaining to requesting a ballot through intake and acceptance. And finally, multi-partisan assistance team, or MAT, which is voter service assistance at facilities. Federal and state laws require all early voting and election day precincts be accessible to all voters. All 27 precincts in Brunswick County will provide multiple options for voter assistance and accessible voting. All open polling locations are staffed with trained precinct officials that can provide assistance to any voter for any reason. Voters can request any poll worker help them at any time during the voting process. Each location has an area in the parking lot designated for curbside voting in which voters remain in their vehicle and are assisted by a trained poll worker through the voting process. In Brunswick County, there is a Verity touch writer at each polling location. This equipment has accessible features that allow the voter to choose their selections through an electronic interface and print the ballot when complete. The Verity touch writer does not have scanning or tabulating capabilities. It is a ballot marking device only. All voters are entitled to receive assistance if they so choose and have the option to choose who helps them as long as they qualify under NC General Statute. As I mentioned, all our polling locations are staffed with precinct officials. These election workers are registered voters and local members of your community who have trained to operate polling locations. Precinct officials are required to follow applicable federal, state, and local election laws. All poll workers take an oath to set aside personal and partisan beliefs and follow the law. They can assist any voter at any time during the voting process for any reason. However, the voter must initiate assistance. They are not permitted to persuade or induce any voter to vote for or against any particular candidate or proposition. They are not permitted to make any record of anything occurring in a voting booth unless they are called upon to testify in a judicial proceeding for a violation of election laws of the state. And they cannot discuss or reveal how a person they assisted voted. When a voter brings someone with them to the polling location, the precinct official is required to ask a series of questions to determine if the person is qualified to assist them. The first question to the voter is if the person they are with is there to assist them. If the voter indicates no, then the person must leave the voting enclosure, as only voters, their minor children, precinct officials, confirmed observers, and those assisting voters are permitted to be in the polling place. If the voter answers yes to the first question, then the poll workers will ask if the person assisting is a near relative. If the voter confirms they are a near relative or legal guardian, then there are no more questions regarding voter assistance, and the poll worker will continue checking in the voter. This person, this near relative or legal guardian, can assist the voter for any reason during the voting process. And a near relative qualifies as a spouse, parent, grandparent, sibling, child, grandchild, mother or father-in-law, daughter or son-in-law, step-parent, or stepchild. If the voter responds no to the question asking if the person there to assist them is a near relative, then the poll worker will then ask if the voter needs assistance because the voter is blind, disabled, or unable to read, write, or speak English. If they answer yes, they may receive assistance from a person of the voter's choice. However, the person assisting may not be the voter's employer, an agent of the employer, or a union representative, as that could be construed as a conflict of interest. Poll workers are required to ask these questions of any voter who presents with someone to assist them. They are not permitted to ask the voter to identify or explain the nature of their disability. Election officials are provided with a script to ensure compliance with the law and uniformity across all counties. Assistants are permitted to accompany the voter through the entire voting process, which may include them assisting in a voting booth. In addition, spouses may vote in the same voting booth as near relatives can assist one another completing the ballot, among other things. Minor children can accompany their parent through the voting process, including being present in the voting booth while their parent is voting, and even complete the ballot for them if the parent needs assistance. Curbside voting is voting from your vehicle. This can occur in designated voting areas and is for people who are unable to enter the polling location without physical assistance due to a disability. The law clarifies disability in the following ways. The voter is unable to enter the voting enclosure due to age, physical, or mental disability. The voter has a medical condition that puts them at increased risk of contracting COVID-19. They are unable to wear a mask due to a medical, behavioral condition or disability, and fear of contracting COVID or refusal to wear a mask due to personal preference rather than a medical condition does not make a person eligible to vote curbside. Or the voter is experiencing symptoms of COVID-19. These voters will cast their ballot from their vehicle. Voters who wish to use the curbside method may only do so in assigned curbside areas that are located within viewing distance of the polling location. These areas are clearly marked with signage and are considered part of the buffer zone. Thus, electioneers are not permitted to approach a curbside vehicle. That buffer zone is 6 feet around the entire vehicle. Voters using curbside will be required to sign an affidavit that is located on their authorization to vote form. By signing, the voter is attesting to their eligibility to use the curbside method. A person is not eligible to vote curbside solely because they are a driver or passenger in a car with an eligible curbside voter. Federal law and North Carolina state requirements require voting systems placed in every open polling location that are equipped with features to assist voters with disabilities cast their ballot privately and independently. In Brunswick County, our voting enclosures are equipped with the Verity touch writer from Hart InterCivic. Each precinct has one machine available to voters. Only a precinct official can open the machine for a voter to use. Voters must check in and obtain their authorization to vote form before using the Verity Touch. The device has several options to assist those who are blind, visually impaired, or have dexterity issues. The Verity Touch will not allow voters to overvote, and voters are required to go through a review of their choices, or they have the option to go through a review of their choices before being given the option to print their ballot. This actually reduces voter error and spoiled ballots. The machine can be used by anyone, but as mentioned, it can only be used and opened for use by a trained poll worker. Let's briefly go over the features of this machine before we watch a video that demonstrates how to use it. The machine has 2 main methods for voting. The touch writer has touch screen capabilities. Voters can tap the screen to indicate their choices. There are options to change the font size or the color of the background and text size for increased visibility. The Verity Access is an attached audio tactile interface, or ATI, which is a console that includes a rotary wheel to move through the ballot, a selection button to mark choices, and Braille under each button. The ATI also supports headphones for voters to listen to the ballot choices and sip and puff devices for voters with dexterity impairments. Once the voter reviews their choices, they are given the option to print or return to the ballot. The ballot prints with the choices the voter made marked on the ballot. The voter then takes their completed ballot to the Verity scan and inserts it into the tabulator to complete the voting process. At this time, we're going to watch a video demonstration on how to use that device. Choices selected. This is the Verity Touch Writer. It is an accessible ballot marking device that can be used by voters who are blind, visually impaired, or have dexterity issues. The Verity Touch is connected to a printer, which will print a ballot with the voters' choices selected once they finish completing their ballot. The Verity Touch can only be opened by a machine tech, chief judge, or other assigned precinct official. It requires a specific code to open. The poll worker will activate the appropriate ballot for the voter using the voter's authorization to vote form. There are multiple features to the Verity Touch. The Verity Touch has touchscreen capabilities and also an audio tactile interface, or ATI console. The console has ports for headphones and for sip and puff devices. The console includes a select button, a help button, and a rotary wheel. Braille describing each button is underneath. The Verity Touch offers choices for screen color, font size, audio speed, and volume. If the voter doesn't need any of those to change, they would tap no, skip straight to voting. Otherwise, they would say, yes, help me change the settings. Voters can move through these items using the touchscreen or the wheel and select buttons on the console. A blind voter would use the audio feature along with the ATI console to move through the ballot, while the touchscreen works well for voters with dexterity issues. For this part of the demonstration, we will use the touchscreen. We're going to use the screen and audio option. To adjust the volume, the voter must use the ATI to hear audio content. If the voter is using the touchscreen, they'll not hear any audio. Audio speed is set to normal. This can be changed to slow down the speech or for a faster speed. We can adjust the screen contrast from the default of full color, as it might be easier for someone to see the screen with a white background and black text, or a black background with white text. Once a selection is made, tap OK, it looks good at the bottom of the screen. Last is text size. We can make the text smaller so the voter can see more information on the screen, or larger, which may help someone who's visually impaired but still wants to use the touch screen. This screen shows that the voter can make changes to text size, font size, or audio speed at any time while using these buttons at the top of the screen. If a voter would like to move directly to their ballot, they can tap or use the wheel to skip instructions, or they can click next and see how to mark a choice. To mark a choice, touch the choice. To unmark a choice, touch it again. Once a voter is ready to vote, they would use the touch screen or the wheel to proceed by clicking the next button and then selecting Start. Let's vote a ballot. For this part, we'll start with the wheel. The voter will turn the wheel until they reach their selection and then click Select. If they're also using the audio feature, they will hear the choices as they turn the wheel, which will let them know when they have reached a choice they wish to make. As the voter turns the wheel, the choices will become outlined. To make the selection, the voter stops on the outlined choice and clicks the Select button. Clicking Select will put a green check mark in the box. A voter using audio would hear the choices and once making a selection would hear what they have selected. Then the voter would move the wheel until they come to the next button. Select Next to move to the next page. For each selection, there are instructions on the left side of the page that will indicate how many selections a voter can make for that office or item on the ballot. A voter can skip a contest if they do not wish to vote on it. Voters are not required to vote on every contest on a ballot. The Verity touch will not allow an overvote in a contest, meaning a voter will not be able to choose more than one candidate or item if the contest does not allow it. Contests allowing more than one choice can be voted for that number or less than that number of choices. Let's finish the ballot by using the touch screen. The voter taps on their selection and the green check mark will appear. Then they can click the next button to continue to the next page. Once the voter comes to the end of the ballot, they'll be given a chance to review their choices or move on to the print option. Let's review our choices. A list of our choices will appear on the screen. We may have to touch the screen to see additional contests depending on the size of the ballot. If we see something we want to change, we would touch Return to Ballot and then use the back button until we get to that contest and make our change. Again, they can use the wheel or the touch screen to go through their completed ballot and ensure their choices are accurately selected. Once we are done reviewing, we click Next. Now that we have reviewed our ballot, we're ready to print. Use the wheel and select button or tap Print to move ahead. A final page before printing will give us a last opportunity to go back to our ballot. Once we click Yes, Print by Ballot, we cannot make any changes to the ballot. If a voter prints a ballot and then wants to make a change, they would need to speak to a poll worker to spoil their ballot and get access to a new one. Ballots are double-sided whether there are choices on both sides or not. Barcodes will print on both sides so that the ballot can be read by the tabulator, whether it is inserted front or back side, up or down. The ballot will drop into the tray once it has completed printing. Once the ballot has completed printing, the machine will go back to the Ready for Use screen. At this point, the machine tech will direct the voter to the tabulator so they can insert their ballot. And remember, if you need help, you can ask a poll worker for assistance at any time during the voting process. Okay, so I hope that video was informative. We're going to move on with our presentation and talk about one-stop early voting now. One-stop early voting is in-person absentee voting. Ballots for early voting are not tabulated until Election Day. It is called one-stop as the voter does everything in one stop at an early voting polling location. They request their ballot, receive their ballot, and vote their ballot all in one stop. The voter requests their absentee ballot when checking in. The voter is provided a one-stop application which lists the voter's name, address, party affiliation, precinct, election date, and unique one-stop ballot identification number. The voter reviews and signs this form. The voter exchanges their one-stop application for their ballot. The voter will then take their ballot to a voting booth and make their selections. Then they will insert their completed ballot into the tabulator, which completes the one-stop early voting process. Voters can go to any open early voting polling location during the early voting period. Depending on the type of election, the number of early voting sites can vary. Early voting polling locations are listed on the Brunswick County Board of Elections website prior to each election's early voting period. Municipal elections in Brunswick County usually have one early voting location open in the government complex. In primary and a general election, there are several early voting sites open in various areas of the county, such as Leland, Southport, Bolivia, Shallotte, and Calabash, to name a few. Voters can go to any open early voting site as ballots are printed on demand using the Verity print and the voter's one-stop application. The correct ballot style is selected by matching the precinct number on the one-stop application and inputting that information into the Verity print. The device then prints the assigned ballot for that voter based on the precinct that they live in. Each one-stop application has a ballot identification number unique to that voter. This number is transcribed onto the top of the voter's ballot. As early voting and absentee ballots can be challenged up until Election Day, these ballots must be retrievable. If an early voter's ballot is challenged, it can be found via the ballot ID number. As a reminder, all absentee ballots, whether via one-stop early voting or absentee by mail voting, are not tabulated until Election Day. On Election Day, the Verity print is not used. Precincts are only provided with their assigned ballot style. It is important for voters to go to their correct precinct on Election Day to ensure they receive the correct ballot that contains all their eligible contests. Voter registration deadline is always 25 days prior to every election. If voters miss this deadline, they can still register to vote through early voting same-day registration. Same-day registration is only offered during early voting. It is not offered on Election Day. Voters who use same-day registration must vote during the early voting period. They are not eligible to vote on Election Day. Voters must provide proof of residency. The state provides a notice to same-day registrants. This form is provided to the voter. The form lists the steps that will be taken to get the voter registered, including the proof of residency requirement. The back of the form lists the acceptable forms of identification the voter can provide. If a voter does not have this information with them, they can still vote a provisional ballot. Another form of absentee voting is absentee by mail. Absentee by mail voting can seem like an overwhelming process. As I mentioned earlier, I'm going to touch on this subject briefly, but I encourage you to tune in to our next election education seminar that will be solely devoted to the topic of absentee by mail. Voters who wish to vote using this process must formally request their ballot using the official North Carolina absentee ballot request form. In North Carolina, voters do not need a specific reason to use absentee by mail voting. If you do not formally request an absentee by mail ballot, you will not receive a ballot packet from the Board of Elections office. Voting organizations and political parties will often send third-party mailings with our return address on them. These are not official mailings from the Board of Elections. We do not mail ballots to voters unless they use official channels to request their ballot. Often, these third-party mailings have a sample ballot included. Voters may receive multiple third-party mailers. These sample ballots are just that, samples. A sample ballot can be used to help prepare a voter for an election. Sample ballots are not official ballots, and completing and returning them will not be counted as a vote. As samples and unofficial ballots, they will not be accepted by the board or the voting equipment. The official ballot will come directly from the Board of Elections. The envelope will state it is official election mail. The packet will include a special return envelope, and the ballot must be returned in this envelope. People in the same household should make sure they keep their ballot packets separate from one another. Ballots and envelopes have unique ballot identification numbers that correspond to one another. The packet will come with instructions on how to return the ballot. There are specific requirements on the envelope, and they must be completed per the included instructions. The third item in the packet will be the official ballot. Voters who do wish to vote absentee by mail can access the official form online through the state's absentee ballot portal. The link to the portal is located on our website and the North Carolina State Board of Elections website. At the bottom of the portal page, the voter can click on option 1 to request their absentee ballot, which will take them through the online form. The portal has multiple options to ensure all voters have access. Option 2 is access to military and overseas voter services, where they can request and access their ballot through the portal. Option 3 is for visually impaired voters who have requested an accessible ballot and have been informed their ballot is now available. Option 4 provides a sample ballot that a voter can practice marking or download and print. Voters can opt to complete a paper absentee ballot request form as well. Voters can download and print the paper form from our website or the state's website. The voter can mail the form to our office once completed, and the form can also be submitted to our office in person. If the form is brought to our office in person, the person submitting the form will need to complete additional paperwork that the state requires. I will go over this in more detail in our next seminar. MAT is the multi-partisan assistance team appointed by the County Board of Elections to assist voters who live in hospitals, clinics, nursing homes, and other similar facilities with various voting services. At a minimum, a MAT team is comprised of 2 people with different party affiliations. The MAT team is available to provide voting assistance to those that cannot get to the polls. Some of the services that they can provide are helping individuals get registered to vote, aiding voters with requesting an absentee by mail ballot, serving as an absentee by mail witness, assisting voters with marking their ballots, helping a voter with completing an absentee ballot, return envelope instructions, and or sealing the ballot in the return envelope. And MAT services are requested by contacting our office. All right, I hope you enjoyed tonight's seminar and that you have a better understanding of all the options available to voters who need or want assistance with any part of the process of voting. Before we conclude, I would like to mention our upcoming events. On Wednesday, July 12th, is our absentee by mail seminar, where we will talk about the process of absentee by mail. What is it? How to request a ballot? Who can request a ballot? How to complete the ballot return envelope? How to return the completed ballot? The additional paperwork required if it's being returned in person, and of course, how ballots are processed at the Board of Elections. On Wednesday, August 16th, we're going to be going through our voting equipment and learning about the different equipment used in Brunswick County. It includes an introduction to the equipment, what type of testing is done to ensure accuracy, and the security measures in place. In September, on Thursday, the 21st, is our Prepare to Vote seminar. This is where voters can learn the steps they can take to ensure a smooth voting process. Confirming registration, knowing their deadlines and important dates, same-day registration, finding sample ballots, finding assigned precincts, provisional ballots, what are they and why they're important, and candidate party promotion. What can you wear when you're voting, and dealing with electioneers. Lastly, on Thursday, December 7th, we'll be talking about certifying an election and the process that goes into that. What is Canvass? How do we record voter history, provisional ballots, sample audit count? Now, if you missed our first couple of seminars, you can find those recordings on our YouTube channel at Brunswick NC Votes. We also have a few more poll worker orientations scheduled before we begin our training in September for the municipal election. Poll workers or election officials operate the polls and provide assistance to voters throughout our 27 precincts during early voting and on election day. We rely on hundreds of poll workers each election to maintain our voting sites. Poll worker orientations are no obligation sessions that provide interested community members the opportunity to learn the roles, responsibilities, and necessary requirements to be a poll worker in Brunswick County. I encourage you to join us for one of our upcoming sessions here in the Commissioners' Chambers. We have one Wednesday, June 28th at 10 a.m., Wednesday, July 26th at 2 p.m., and Thursday, August 24th at 10 a.m. And those are all in person orientations here in the commissioners' chambers. Now, being a poll worker is a fun and rewarding experience, and I always like to include some comments from our poll workers about their experience working as precinct officials. So Missy has worked 4 elections beginning in 2020, the last 2 as a help desk specialist. Missy says, I enjoy being a poll worker because I enjoy meeting new people and working together in our community. I've met some amazing people that otherwise I would never have known. It also gives me an opportunity to see the kindness and goodness of people everywhere. I love helping to serve the citizens of Brunswick County in this way and providing the community with firsthand confidence in our election process. Phil has been a poll worker since 2018 and the last 5 elections as a chief judge. Phil says, as a US and North Carolina citizen, I consider voting not just a right, but also an obligation. Serving as a poll worker gives me an immense sense of pride to contribute to the democratic process and profound confidence in the electoral process. I witness on election days the real American spirit as voters with different political perspectives unite to ensure a smooth, peaceful transition of officials at all levels of government. So I want to thank you all for coming. We appreciate your time here today. I have a slide up now with our contact information, website, and social media handles. I encourage you to follow us on any of these sites that you use. We are continually working to expand our social media presence to provide accurate and timely information to all the members of our community. Please tell your family, friends, neighbors to follow us as well and to join us in future seminars. And if you have any questions at any time after this meeting, go to our website and complete the submission forms so we can get those answered for you. So now I'm going to open the floor and online for any questions that we may have. So I'm going to turn it over to Ryan and ask if anybody has asked any questions online. All right, so we currently don't have any questions, but I'm going to give a minute or 2 just to see if anybody wants to pose one. There's a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen where you can type in a question and we're happy to answer that for you. In the meantime, do check out our YouTube channel. Please subscribe there. We do have the video up that you saw today with the demonstration on how to use our Verity Touch. We have some other videos and of course the previous seminars, if you did miss those, that you can watch on your own time. We will continue to post. This seminar will be posted by tomorrow morning for anybody who, if you came in late, I think we saw somebody come in late, if you wanted to just catch the beginning, of course, and you can see all the slides at your leisure there. So Ryan, any questions?
We did have a question asking about our email. They could only see part of it. So
yes, it looks like I didn't complete that. So it's elections@brunswickcountync.gov. elections@brunswickcountync.gov.
And I'm going to answer that as well so they have it in writing.
Thank you. Any other questions, Ryan? Okay, great. Well, I hope you will join us next month for our absentee by mail seminar. And of course, follow us on social media, email us, call us. We're here to answer any of your questions. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Have a great night, everyone.